Good morning, afternoon, and evening to all our valued audience and speakers. Welcome to the highly anticipated yoga webinar entitled Opportunities Lost, Espousing Self-Reliance Amid Funding Uncertainty. My name is Tulan Moyo, and the external media team member and community advocate. It's my pleasure to moderate today's session. Let's look at the webinar's etiquette. When we enter the webinar, make sure you are on mute. Remain on mute throughout the webinar. Ensure your camera is off. We need to respect everyone's data, as data consumption is expensive in Africa. Type your questions. Type your questions or comments in the chat box only. Put your name and country. Those whose questions or comments are selected will be asked to unmute and speak. If you are asked to speak, you must introduce yourself by name and country only. Please, and then repeat the question or comment you type in the chat box. Around the world, and a full stop to 8, these policy changes are already having consequences for some of the world's poorest and most vulnerable ended abruptly, and livelihoods organizations and entrepreneurs now face immense challenges in sustaining their initiatives and maintaining economic stability. This situation highlights the urgent need for African nations and individuals to take charge of their own economic futures rather than relying on unpredictable external support. We must explore sustainable strategies to build resilient economies, foster local innovation, and strengthen intra-African trade and collaboration. By focusing on self-reliance, Africa can develop long-term solutions that empower its people and drive development from within. In light of these pressing challenges, we invite you to push for a conversation on how we as Africans can say goodbye to aid and master self-reliance during times of uncertainty. Have you been affected by reduction or withdrawal of aid? Do you know someone who has been impacted? How you or your community overcoming these challenges? Today, we shall discuss practical solutions, share experience, and develop actionable strategies to move Africa toward a future of economic independence and sustainability. We recognize Olerato Romakua Romsang from Botswana as the author of this webinar's concepts. Note: to begin this exciting webinar, I ask you all in the audience to type in the chat your name and your country. Let me introduce the speakers who will be with us today. We have Patience Namanya, development professional from Uganda. We have Umba Munene, lawyer, software engineer, co-founder, Tapfel Global, Zambia. We have Nandi Mukwanas, founder and MD, Naloi Organic Farm Convener for Advocacy and Communication, South African Organic Sector Organization, South Africa. We have Bethel Ulujobi, journalist, trade correspondent at Business Day, Nigeria. We have Mr. Hera, LT Paul, international trade, policy, and finance specialist, economic researcher, and regional integration expert from Grenada. We have Dr. Kauzefi Isaka Daud Bani, COO and founder, Daud Bani Consulting from Chad. We have Amida Nakaja, lecturer faculty of law at the Islamic University in Uganda, chairperson Inter-University Forum on Gender Responsive Pedagogy, Uganda. We have Brighton Chanda Chisanga, founder of Innovate Hub, Zambia. These are our speakers. As we start this webinar, I have two-part question for our speakers. First, in your view, what has caused Africa's immense reliance on aid? And second, in light of the ongoing funding uncertainties, what impact do you foresee with aid withdrawal on African economies and communities? We have 3 minutes to respond to the questions I just highlighted, starting with Patience Namaya, development professional from Uganda. Please unmute and be on video for the next 3 minutes. Thank you. Patience Namanya, are you there? It seems Miss Patience is not available. The next speaker, Bumba Munene, can you respond to the questions, please? For the next 3 minutes, be on video and unmute.
All right. Thank you very much, moderator. And good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody on the webinar, depending on where you are hearing us from. And I should start by saying I'm very delighted to be part of this panel to dive right into the question, what exposed Africa's lack of self-sufficiency? I think the panic and the frenzy that Africans in Africa in general were sent into when the announcement was made that most aid coming from the US was going to be cancelled. The panic is evidence of the fact that Africa is not in a place where it's self-reliant. So those are just things at face value that you can point to that points to the fact that Africa is not self-reliant. So I'd say the panic and the frenzy that African countries and Africans in general ran into at the announcement of the cutting of the donor funding. To answer the other question, what impact do I perceive as a result of these policies that are being put in place? I would like to separate the impacts into negative and positive impacts. Pardon me for that. So to start with the negative impacts, of course, cutting off donor funding reduces the essential public services and development projects that depended on this funding for them to actually be sustained in Africa. Another negative impact is the increase in poverty and inequality rates. Because Africans depend on funding for the poverty rates to be alleviated as well as inequality. Cutting off aid will send most Africans directly in the drain of poverty. Another negative impact of cutting donor aid is the decreased economic growth and stability of African countries. But on the other hand, focusing more on the positives, because in every situation there's a negative outcome and a positive outcome. Some of the positive impacts that I would point out is that this encourages self-sufficiency and local resource mobilization for African countries. Just to quote Don Williams, a famous musician, he says, lessons that come easy are not lessons at all. They are gracious acts of luck, yet lessons learned the hard way are lessons never forgotten. It's not a secret that conversations around self-reliance have been going on and on in Africa for decades and decades, and yet nothing has been done because most African countries had debt and financial aid to rely on. But now that we're being put in a situation by force where we have no choice but to rely on ourselves, I feel self-sufficiency is going to be motivated out of this. Another positive result is that you reduce dependency on external aid, and which is a step forward for Africa. And a last positive impact I can point to is that this will foster innovation and innovative solutions for entrepreneurship because, pardon me, because I'm a strong believer in innovation and in entrepreneurship being the solution for Africa. I believe the fact that there's no more aid coming to Africa, um, entrepreneurs are forced to find solutions for their country, for their various African countries to thrive. That would be my suggestion. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Bumba Munene, for your response. It is very true that as Africans, we are not self-reliant, resilient, and we draw positive and negative aspects from this, and it encourages us to be self-sufficient, and we learned this a hard way for sure. So thank you so much. I'll call in our next speaker, that is Nandi Mkwanasi, founder and MD, Nanloy Organic Farm, co-convener for advocacy and communication from South African Organic Sector Organization in South Africa. Can you respond, please, in the next 3 minutes and be on video? Can you please unmute? Thank you. We can move into another speaker, which is Bethel Olujobi, journalist from Nigeria. What's your take on this one? Can you please unmute for the next 3 minutes and respond to the questions, please? Thank you.
Hello, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak about this very critical topic. Yes, it is indeed a problem. It's a huge issue right now across the continent, and issue of foreign aid is something that has been a conversation for a very long time. And I would say that we can trace it to our debt problem. We actually have a debt problem in Africa. External reserves running, external debt rather, is running into trillions, right? Over $1.1 trillion in debt. And so, almost 40% of African countries spend a lot trying to pay back this debt, trying to service their debt. And the revenue that they get, they use it to fund debt. The budget for debt servicing is bigger than that of education and all the key sectors like education, health, right? So when we're spending all this money trying to service the debt, trying to pay back what we borrowed, the excessive borrowing that we found ourselves in, where would the rest of the money go? And that's a problem. if our national budget for the year is showing that we have over 45% just to service debts that we've been paid, that we borrowed. How do we focus on key sectors, which is why we've always needed foreign aid, which is why foreign aid comes in, foreign money comes in. We use foreign money to build roads, we use foreign money to build schools, we use it to build hospitals in Africa, which is very, very, very disappointing, because for Africa, with its resources, with its talent, it has its own self-sufficient tendency. So why do we always have to depend on it? So that's why we've always needed aid, because we've borrowed so much that we don't have money to even focus on what is most important. Instead, we rather focus on trying to pay back what we have. I mean, for a continent a continent with a combined GDP of 2.8 trillion naira, you have 1.1 trillion naira dollars, rather 1.1 trillion dollars in debt. What do you do? And then, of course, eventually this was going to happen. Eventually, aid won't last forever. That's what it's called, aid. It's not eternal, right? So eventually this came along, and now the aid has been cut, it has been suspended. And so what is happening? We're already seeing the effects, right? In terms of effect, I see short-term effect, I see long-term effect. The short-term effect is what we're seeing right now. We're seeing job losses, we're seeing people being affected, people having to be sent home from work. We're seeing, obviously, we could even see political instability, because then a lot of social services are suspended. Tell me, you can hear me, right?
Okay. Oh, thank you.
Are you with me?
Thank you so much. Yes. Can you wrap up in the next 30 seconds, please? Thank
Okay,
you.
that's very fine. So short-term effect, obviously, job losses, so political instability, we could see some unrest in terms of social services being cut short. But long-term is the most important, and that's what I'm seeing as a wake-up call to Africa. Eventually, we have to start prioritizing our trade. We have to start prioritizing trading among ourselves, developing our industries, local production. So that is what I see. It might be painful now, but it's beneficial for us in the long term. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Bumba Monene, for your contribution.
Better
yes, yes, that is very important for sure. We need to review our own policies as Africans, and work on our budgets, national budgets as well, and we will be fine with self-sustainability. That is very important. Thank you. Moving on, I will now call Ms. Patience Namanya.
Can you hear me?
Yes, Ms. Patience, can you please unmute and be on video for the next 3 minutes? Respond to the question.
My sincere apologies for before. I have network issues. But could you just kindly repeat the question, because I kind of logged off, I think, when the screen was up.
Okay, it's fine. In your view, what has caused Africa's immense reliance on aid? And second, in light of ongoing funding uncertainties, what impact do you foresee with aid withdrawal on African economies and communities?
Okay. Well, why is Africa reliant on aid? I think it comes back to how we emerged from colonialism, how aid was introduced to African countries. It was introduced as support without strings attached, or a form of development aid. We're giving you this, that came with packages and incentives. And in the long run, African countries found themselves heavily indebted to various financial global institutions. And in exchange for resources, in exchange for certain governance structures, in exchange for peace in certain areas. And now we're seeing that the current American government is changing its ideology on what foreign aid means to them. When you look at Donald Trump's decision to pull aid, it's him going back on a very strong fundamental American ideology that foreign aid increases American influence globally, that countries would not rise up and go against America and rather look at America as an ally because of foreign aid. But the Trump administration pulling back shows that there is going to be a change in global relations. That is what I see in the short run. Many of Trump's allies in Europe, in Africa, are questioning the credibility of their relations with the United States. Number two, which is very important for the African continent and for us as African citizens, is now with self-reflection, how have our governments been running on aid? How can we now build internal finance mechanisms that can support our economies without relying on aid? And then we are going to have to restructure everything, our taxation, how we're going to still pay back these loans without aid, and most importantly, how we're going to deliver critical services without US aid in many of our remote communities. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That is very valuable for sure. We need international, we need our own inter mechanism and restructure everything so that our economics will continue to grow, and this will be a positive aspect at the end. So thank you so much, Ms. Patience, for your contributions. Moving on to our next speaker, we have Mr. Hera, LT Paul, International Trade Policy and Finance Specialist from Grenada. Can you please unmute and be on video and comment for the next 3 minutes, please? Thank you. Mr. Hera? Mr. Hera? Thank you. It seems we have lost Mr. Hera. We can move on to our next speaker, Dr. Kausef Isaka Daubani. Can you please unmute?
Thank you very much, our moderator,
And
Tulani.
yeah.
Can you hear me, please?
Yeah, yes, go ahead.
Well,
can you
yeah, go ahead.
comment on can you comment on you have 3 minutes to comment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, moderator. I just landed back to chat from New York, so I hope my internet will be very good to attend the meeting. First of all, I would like to say thanks to Yalda for the opportunity and to all the attendees here, specifically those from Chad, because the data is not quite accessible here. So for those who have made the effort to be here, I would like to say thanks to them. I think we have already highlighted, a few causes made by my predecessor, and I would like to add a few remarks. But I prepared myself into academic, let's say, options. But I would like you to get the perspective of our leaders who are in New York, the UN, to defend our causes, whether in international affairs, or humanitarian aid, or financing for development. So we have ambassadors, we have private sector representatives, civil society, who are debating in New York day and day to make our voices heard. So the perspective they have there is about, I mean, colonial legacy and economic structure, as I mean, raised by the past panelists. I would like to explain that by saying many African economies were structured during colonial rule to serve external interests, prioritizing the extraction of raw materials rather than industrialization and self-sufficiency. Second, we have weak industrial base and limited economic diversification. The lack of strong industrializations has perpetuated reliance and external funding to fill economic gaps. Many African countries remain heavily dependent on commodity, export oil, mineral, and agriculture, rather than developing robust manufacturing and serving sectors. Three, we have governance and institutional weaknesses, because we have corruptions, mismanagement, and weak institutions which have undermined domestic revenue, mobilizations, and economic planning. Four, and which is more important because I was part of the African group to defend our position when we were writing last December a resolution, UN resolution on debt issue. So the fourth one is debt and structural adjustment programs, what we call SAPs. Because in the 90s and earlier 80s, many African countries turned to the International Monetary Fund, call it IMF, and the World Bank for loans under structural adjustment programs, which impose austerity. Yes.
Can you wrap up in the next 30 seconds, please? Thank you.
Okay, very quickly. So under the structural adjustment programs, which impose, I mean, austerity measures, reduce government spending and social services. As part of the impact on aid withdrawal on African economic communities, we have several, I mean, impacts, but let me highlight just three of these I mean, as main issue. We have the economic instability and fiscal crisis. We have loss of social services, which I mean include health, education, welfare. And the third one is rising unemployment and business closure. NGOs have development agencies employ thousands of Africans nowadays. Funding cuts could lead to mass job losses affecting families and local economies. Let me stop here and then wait for the next slide. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you so much, Dr. Kausefi, for your contributions and comments. For sure, we have to restructure our economic initiative as we have a lot of resources in Africa, but sometimes it's mismanagement for sure, as you stated. Thank you so much. Moving on to our next speaker, we have Amida Nagajga, lecturer of Faculty of Law at the Islamic University in Uganda, and chairperson in the University Forum on Gender Responsive Pedagogy Uganda. Can you please unmute and for the next 3 minutes, be in video and respond to the questions, please? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Yalda, the moderator, and all the attendees and other participants on board. In respect to the questions, basically the role of higher education. Am I audible?
Yes, go ahead.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, yes.
Yes, yeah.
Yes, so okay. So in respect to the question that the role, what is basically the role of higher education in as far as preparing future leaders to tackle funding challenges and also to be able to create self-reliance economies or self-reliant economies. Basically, one of the roles that higher education plays in that is that it provides it equips critical thinking skills, critical analytical skills to the future leaders. It also equips them with problem-solving skills. By all those kinds of skills, the students or future leaders are incapacitated to critically assess the financial statements, to critically assess the financial performance of the organizations, to also critically assess the financial reporting and evaluating or monitor. All those skills that education gives to future leaders is actually something that help in the long run in as far as the financial performance, and also in as far as attending to or resolving issues of financial challenges are concerned. So of course, higher education also equips future leaders in terms of conducting research. They're incapacitated to get the research skills, and with these research skills, they are incapacitated to make informed decisions. They are also incapacitated to do the evaluation and monitoring. They are also incapacitated to come up with strategic plans, to come up with budgets, and also higher education also gives future leaders leadership skills. And with the leadership skills that are attained from higher education, future leaders are incapacitated to evaluate the performance of the organizations. They are also incapacitated to evaluate the financial performance of the organizations. They're incapacitated to evaluate the financial statements of the organizations. They're incapacitated to make financial analysis that makes that in the end helps in creating self-reliance systems, and also incapacity of dealing with the financing challenges.
Thank you so much.
Yes. And maybe the other aspect of what basically what hello, I don't know whether I'm still online.
Yes, go ahead.
The other aspect, okay.
Can you wrap up in the next 30 seconds, please?
The other aspect okay, yes. The other aspect of the relevancy, or basically the skills, or that basically what are the legal frameworks that are necessary in order for us to have a self-reliant system, or in order for economies to be able to self-sustain themselves, especially for the sectors of education and the sectors of health, is that one of those aspects is that one, the collaboration. We need a legal framework on collaboration. We also need a legal framework basically providing for financing aspects. And for financing aspects, the necessity of that is that there's a necessity of legal framework in respect to finances to basically entail aspects of accountability, aspects of transparency, aspects of financial proper record keeping, and also aspects in order for regulatory compliance. The other legal framework that is also essential, that I feel is necessity for us to have a self-reliant economy, is on communication, and also in communication and intellectual property rights.
Amida?
Yes.
Can you wrap up, please? Thank you.
Okay, I'm winding up by saying that the legal frameworks that are important for us to have a self-reliant economy is that in as far as the underfunded sectors are concerned, specifically the health sector and education sector, is that we need to have a legal framework on the finances. We need to have a legal framework on alumni for education institutions that regulates on how money is going to be collected, how fund is going to be raised, and the various campaigns that can be put in place in order to raise funds. The other one is on respect to intellectual property, how institutions are going to be gaining from the researches that are published, and how income is going to be generated. The other aspect is about endowment of business activities that institutions can do in order to raise funds, in order to self-sustain themselves. The other aspect is about the research. We also need a policy on research, or legal framework on research, which we will engage. We're supposed to conduct the research. What are the kinds of grants that can be go through? What is the procedure I submit? Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Amida, for your contributions, and it is very insightful for sure that as Africans we need higher education so that it provides critical analysis and problem-solving skills and leadership for our future leaders, so that when challenges arises, issues will be resolved as expected. Thank you. Now moving on, I would like to call Mr. Yera, LT Pro,
Hi,
International
I
Trade.
am here.
Yes.
Yes. So can you please clarify the question that I'm supposed to answer, please?
Oh, okay. In your view, what has caused Africa immense reliance on aid? And second, in light of the ongoing funding uncertainties, what impact do you foresee with aid withdrawal on African economies and communities? So you have 3 minutes to respond to the questions. Thank you.
Okay. So, in my view, Africans' reliance on aid basically would have stemmed from, as my former presenter would have said, former colonial time, when aid was used as basically a means to develop relations with developing countries. And the withdrawal now, basically, because of Africa's reliance, would have like severe impact. And I think this is in terms of like economic slowdown, because many African countries tend to rely on foreign aid for structural development, healthcare, education, and social services and stuff like that. So withdrawing this funding could lead them to a slowdown in development and increased poverty and social unrest. Also, we have like increased vulnerability. The withdrawal of aid in this case can cause increased vulnerability because communities that depend on humanitarian aid for basic needs may struggle to meet their requirements, leading to food insecurity, increased vulnerability to crisis, including health emergencies and conflicts. Thirdly, it can cause reduced investment in public services, because a lot of these countries use this aid for public service investments, and this kind of reduces or diminishes access to education, healthcare, and sanitation, negatively affecting communities' well-being and human capital development. And basically, the reduction of aid or the halt in aid creates a shift in economic relations. So you would have Africa now seeking, moving away from traditional countries like US, from like the US, to seek potential partnerships with other countries, right? And that's basically my contribution. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Yera, for your contribution. And this is very insightful for sure. We have experienced the impact of this. And as you mentioned that it increases poverty, vulnerability, and it has an impact on health and well-being as well. So this is very insightful. Thank you. I will now move on to our next speaker. Brighton Chanda Chisanga, founder of Innovate Hub from Zambia. Can you please be on video and unmute and answer the questions for the next 3 minutes, please? Thank you.
Thank you, moderator. Can you just go through the question again? Which question is that? Just one.
All right. In your view, what has caused Africa's immense reliance on aid? And second, in light of the ongoing funding uncertainties, what impact do you foresee with aid withdrawal on African economics and communities? So you have 3 minutes to answer the question.
All right. Okay. To begin with, what has caused the reliance on debts and donor money, over dependence, and other things. I think it's because we are a lost cause, I would say, to begin with. Africa has potential in human resource, natural resources, the weather, the climate, almost everything is perfect. But it all starts with the colonial mindset, which was put in us that there's nothing we can do on our own. And that has prolonged for a long time. We reach a situation whereby our leaders just think they can't do anything without it. And I've never seen a country in the world which has developed from aid. I mean, you can't develop from aid because it was in those days when they used to give to organizations like World Vision, organizations like SNV and other organizations. And those organizations, they actually implement their projects on their own. They don't give them to government. But this aid that is given direct to the government is just usually misappropriated, and because they think that's the only way we can do it. And yeah, that's what has caused the overdependence on the aid. But in the actual sense, Africa can actually survive without aid. I mean, so I see this coming up. Like for the longest time, I've always hoped, like, what can we do as Africans, to move forward away from this state? So this, in as much as it will be a blow on Africa, most of the African countries will go into poverty because some of the African countries use these aids to provide services to the people. But now that there is no debt, meaning we'll be forced now to learn what we're supposed to do. So it's a wake-up call for Africa. Now that this has happened, it's a wake-up call to Africa for young people like us, the young people. It's now the time for us to see that, okay, we need to take leadership seriously in our countries. You can't just be depending on other people to develop you for your problems. And I would actually tell everyone that this is a wake-up call. You've seen Trump. Trump is not somebody who's going to hide. He's going to say, if we're not benefiting anything from you, there's no point in giving you debt. So what that means is that
can you wrap up in the next 30 seconds, please? Thank you.
Yeah. So what that means is that we need now to realize that the aid that was being given to us was given with strings attached. We have now to realize that for them to give, they are taking more than they are giving. They're giving us aid, or let's construct a rail line in your country so that they can be taking out our minerals. So now it's a wake-up call for us to see, even if we're seeking potential partners or potential people to start giving us aid, we should be partners with them, such that we are giving them something and we're benefiting more as well. We should be equal partners. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. That was very insightful. Thank you, Bright and Chanda Chisanga, for your contributions. For sure, Africa has been depending on foreign aid for personal achievements and strategies. For sure, it is a wake-up call so that it will become self-reliance. Thank you so much for your contributions. Okay. Let's move on to the speaker questions. I need to call in Dr. Kauseif Isaka Daudi Bane. As an advocate for youth, as an advocate for youth empowerment, what steps should African countries take to better equip youth to drive self-reliance in their communities? How can African nations leverage multilateral cooperation to foster self-reliance amid international funding challenges? How can African leaders better align their policies with global sustainable development goals to ensure long-term self-reliance? You have 5 minutes to respond. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much once again, and let me thanks the panelists for the very insightful ideas they have shared. I think to foster self-reliance among youth, African nations, we must implement a multi-faceted approach that includes and vocational training. We have actuarial ecosystem. We have policy and regulatory reforms. We have technology and digital transformations. We have sectors like agriculture and green economy opportunities to promote. And lastly, I would say we have also civic engagement and leadership training programs that we should implement. We should, work together to implement very starting by the local area, then national and the regional side. So to move on to the next questions, you said, if I remember well, how African nations leverage multilateral cooperation or collaboration, something like that. So, first of all, we need to make very, we need very strong political commitment that will foster, for instance, regional economic integration. We have today, as a part of the African Union agencies, we have the AFCFTA, the African Continental Free Trade Area, that we should keep to enhance intra-African trade and reduce dependence on external aid, for instance. We have also to promote South-South cooperation, which is essential. Today, the UN has a South-South Cooperation Agency, which is working on expanding partnerships with emerging economies in Asia, Latin American region. We have the Middle East, which are having very growthful economies. We can open new avenues for trade, investment, and technologies transfer. Resource pooling. African countries, I wish they could collectively establish sovereign wealth funds and regional financial institutions to finance infrastructure, industrializations, and innovations. Before to finish this part, I would like to emphasize the importance of including diaspora engagement, because today we cannot ignore the contribution that comes from diaspora. I think in 1 year we have calculated that the contribution coming from diaspora into African continent, it's more than 60 billion dollar. And this is not something that we should joke with. So we need to structure very well, very attractive ways to encourage diaspora to contribute to the economic growth in Africa. And to finish on how can African leaders better align their policies in terms of achieving the sustainable development goals. We have priorities in these SDGs. All SDGs are not applicable in Africa yet. We have, to be honest, we have priorities. And first of all, for instance, in terms of hunger, poverty, education, climate change, food security. These are the SDGs we need to work on by adopting, for instance, homegrown development strategies to invest in renewable energies and climate resilience. We need to enhance food security and agricultural productivity, improve governance and public accountability. And I always remind the importance of industrializations and value additions by ending with health and social protection system that we need to reform them to build resilient healthcare systems to ensure that populations remain productive and capable of contributing to economic growth. So these approaches, African leaders can promote them to drive sustainable self-reliance while contributing successfully to global development goals.
Okay.
As youth, we need also to do our
Okay.
part of the work. We need to be very well educated and be very open into international challenges.
Hello,
and
doctor.
opportunities
Can
to
you
make,
wrap up in the next 30 seconds, please?
Yes, I think I've already, finished my contribution.
All
so
right.
I'm sharing my contribution. So let's give the chance to others.
All right.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much.
And sorry for the quality of the video, because I'm in a place where there is not light.
All right. It's fine. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Kausef, for your comments and your responses. For sure, we need to establish financial institutions, and this will help to reduce dependence. And that was very, very crucial indeed. And thank you for sharing the highlights. And now moving on, I will call in our next speaker. We'll move on to Bumba Munene. As the co-founder of Tapfel Global, how can fintech solutions empower individuals and small businesses to become more self-sufficient? How do you see technology-driven innovation shaping the future of self-reliance in Africa, especially in the face of funding uncertainty? Can you please unmute and be on video? You have 5 minutes to respond. Mr. Bumba Munene.
All right, thank you very much. Yes, thank you very much. First and foremost, as an entrepreneur myself, I feel and I believe that African youth have the brains, they have the ideas, they have the passion, the drive, the zeal. But one thing that really stands in the way of individuals and small businesses from becoming self-reliant is lack of access to finance. So what fintech does in general, or financial technology, is that it provides access to financial services, tools and resources that are not immediately available. So this includes mobile banking, digital payments, microloans, and other financial inclusion initiatives. So I'll give an example of my startup. So I run a startup called Tapfel Global. This is basically a credit card system for fuel and car spare parts that targets people in the gig economy. So this is taxi drivers, bus drivers, truck drivers, and anybody in the gig economy that requires cars. So what our fintech startup does basically is connect drivers to access to finance, and as soon as they can get credit and get their businesses running, they're able to pay back from the profits that they realize and pay back with interest, of course. And so this is one way that a fintech company or business provides access to finance, which is one of Africa's biggest challenges when it comes to small businesses with regards to self-sufficiency. So given this scenario, it can be espoused that by leveraging technology, fintech solutions can reduce costs, increase efficiency, and improve the overall customer experience, which enables individuals and small businesses to manage their finances more effectively. So the second question is basically how I see technology-driven innovation shaping the future of self-reliance in Africa. Once Africans invest in technology, it has this multi-sectoral approach that just brings so much benefits to Africa. First and foremost, it provides job opportunities because technology is associated with innovation, and innovation basically mends gaps such as lack of job creation, lack of financial inclusion, and many other things. So basically, technology-driven innovation is the way forward, I believe, for Africa, because it really mends the holes and creates a space where Africa can become self-sufficient. So to total up my contribution to the conversation, despite the funding uncertainty, innovation can really help Africa. We need to stop looking outside for solutions. Africa has everything it needs. As my pre-current speaker spoke about how we have the human resource, we have the natural resource. Where is the problem? We need to venture into innovation, create solutions for Africa by Africans. And this is one way that will stop relying on aid. We actually do not need aid. And so this discussion that we're having right now is actually putting Africa in a position where it does what it should have been doing over the years. And just to prove that we have the capacity, I was shocked to find out that statistics indicate that Africa actually has the biggest mobile money market in the world. That's Sub-Saharan Africa and West Africa. So this shows that we actually have the capacity to build sustainable businesses. We are leading in a sector of fintech. What stops us from leading in other sectors? We can do it. It's all about channeling our resources, our minds towards innovation and looking inside for the solutions as opposed to looking outside for debt, looking outside for aid. We can do it. We can do it. We can do it. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Bumba Munene, for your contributions. That is very insightful. Yes, technology could play important role in creating job opportunities and reduce cost. That is very insightful for sure. Thank you so much. I will then call in our next speaker. That is Hamida Nakajga. How do you say the role of higher education in preparing future leaders to tackle funding challenges and build self-reliant economies? What legal frameworks do you believe are necessary for encouraging self-reliance, particularly in underfunded sectors like education and healthcare? Can you please unmute and be on video for the next 5 minutes and respond to the questions, please? Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you so much for the opportunity. In respect to those questions, I will still re-echo that one of the roles of higher education, in as far as the question is concerned, is that it equips future leaders with problem-solving skills, critical analytical skill, critical thinking skills, critical analytical skills, leadership skills, communication skills, and research skills. All those skills, there are various skills and competencies which higher education equips future leaders. And those skills, in as far as addressing funding challenges, and also in as far as creating a self-reliant economy is concerned, is that it will enable future leaders to be in capacity to evaluate decisions before making them. I use the evidence-based information in order to make decisions. I evaluate, assess, make risk assessments in respect to the challenges or activities that are going to be done. Also, the other aspect is that there will be in capacity to make financial analysis based on the financial data that is available. They will be in capacity to do fundraising for various activities and also to come up with a business activities within those institutions in order to raise income and also to address the challenges that may be there in terms of financial lapses and gaps. And also in respect to the question of the legal framework that I feel is necessary is that there is a need for a legal framework that is going to be regulating aspects concerning the finances of various institutions, especially in the education sector and the health sector that has been specified. They can come up with a legal framework that basically is going to be regulating how money is going to be spent in an institution, or the activities that the activities that are going to be funded by the institution, how accountability is going to be made, the approval procedures in those different institutions. There is also need to regulate to come up with a legal framework that is going to be addressing issues of technology and also the systems that are going to be used, which are electronic, the electronic platforms that are going to be used in terms of finances, because apparently there are so many systems that are being used, the accounting systems, the electronic systems where procurement can be done. Various institutions are using various systems. So Those kind of legal framework, I feel they're necessary because they are going to help in addressing in bringing transparency, in bringing accountability, in also bringing analyzing the financial status and the financial performance of those various institutions. I also feel another one is about research, like with different institutions, both in the health sector and education sector, have various policies on research, and some of those policies basically or legal framework basically include how the research grants are going to be given, how are they going to be allocated, who can apply for them, in cases where there are institutions that are going to be doing exchanges or do a joint research, how is it going to be handled, are they going to be using a memorandum of understanding, all those help in terms of creating a self-reliant economy, or bringing independence in terms of those institutions so that they can be able to financially live and to also financially excel. I feel also there's also an alumni associations. Institutions have policies or legal framework regulating alumni, the activities they can do, the scope of their authority, the procedure and how they expedite their business, and also the procedure of the various activities that they can use to raise funds for those various institutions, academic institutions. There's also a communication policy. Sometimes institutions can have a single legislation, or they can have various legislation or policies, basically on different aspects. They can be contained in one document, or they can be contained in more than many documents. But the best one is normal, at least having more than two, but not so many of them, because when they become multiple, also understanding them becomes difficult, and also implementation also of the same becomes difficult. The other aspect is that the other legal framework.
Can you please wrap up in the next 30 seconds, please? Thank you.
Okay, so the other legal framework that is also very instrumental is in respect to the intellectual property rights. There is an emerging trend that is going on in respect to the intellectual property, the research or innovations that are made by students. Because most of the institutions apparently may not be having a policy on that. However, some that have actually addressed the dilemma that is there, where students come up with innovations, and then who takes up the rights of them, and who is supposed to register for them. So in short, what I'm trying to say is that there's need for institutions or health sectors to come up with a policy or in respect to protection of intellectual property rights. I submit.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for answering the questions. That was very clear, and for sure we need financial, very important, as it will help to work on business activities and resolve challenges by being self-reliant and having fundraising activities as well. That was good. Thank you so much. I will move into our next speaker. Before I move into our next speaker, I would like to ask our audience to type in the chat box the questions. Please include the name and the country. Now moving on to our next speaker. Brighton Chanda Chisanga. What role do you think technology hubs like Innovate Hub play in the continent's push towards greater independence from external funding? As a Pan-Africanist, how do you see technology as a unifying force for African nations to achieve economic self-reliance? What policies should African governments implement to create an ecosystem that tech sector? Can you please unmute in 5 minutes? Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much for this question. Actually, as the founder for Innovate Hub, going to the question of what can we do as Africans so that, we can promote our own, so that we can get away with stop depending too much on fundings and extremely debts. That is one of the main reasons why I actually came up with the idea with my friend of forming Innovate Hub. A bit of the history about it is, while it's at Copperbelt University, when I was still in Zambia, I noticed that we have a lot of young people that have got brilliant ideas, entrepreneurs. Someone will come up with this today, some will come up with the other thing tomorrow. They are solving so many real life problems. And some of them are doing business on campus, just from maybe running printing services. Some of them are offering private tutoring sessions. Some of them being like the hairdressers, makeup artists, and so on and so forth. But I noticed one trend from these people. Like when they graduate from university, few people actually continue running the same businesses. They get a job and start making less money than they were making in university. So my thinking was, based on research and what other people have said, is that the mind of an African thinks being an entrepreneur is suffering. The mind of the young African thinks for you to be seen as successful, you have to be in an office sitting in front of the laptop. And I was like, we need to offer a right education amongst ourselves. We need to teach ourselves something that actually entrepreneurs build the world. It's those small skills that build the nations and the economies. I'm going to look at economies like Tanzania. When you go to Tanzania, people there are very entrepreneurial. And what Julius Nyerere did to the people of Tanzania is teaching the young people that actually you can be self-reliant. Because it starts with me. It starts with you, all of us who are here. Because as we are speaking here, and another problem I've noticed about Africans is that every time there's a problem at hand, we always point to another direction. Our African leaders, they are blaming the previous governments. They are blaming lack of debt, lack of aid. They are blaming other people. We, the young people, are blaming the older generations. But me, I don't do with the blame game. What I feel is that we are the problems. We need to start working with ourselves. The question is, what can we do for Africa? What can we do as a young person? That's how I started the Innovate Hub, that if somebody has a talent, somebody has a skill, they are a computer scientist, they do this and this and this, they can actually start working on that idea, monetize it. But now coming to the question, what can the government do to create an ecosystem that is going to now support these entrepreneurs and young people that have got brilliant ideas that can solve real life problems for Africa and bring about development is, first of all, like the previous speaker said, we have a lot of ideas that are from Africa, but sold to other countries, not even maybe sold, stolen by other people and implemented, and they come back and sell to us. So if the governments of Africa can now create a situation whereby when someone has an idea, let's register that idea as this particular country's idea, such that if that idea is exported to other countries, we are going to make money. We have countries like Taiwan. We have countries that are surviving by the fact that they make chips. And we have people in Zambia. I know a couple of people from CBU that actually make chips. They design chips. And these are the people that even sell to American companies. I can bring them up to you because I know them. They sell to American companies because the government of Zambia has even refused to create an environment for them to sell those ideas. But if only we can have a government that listens to the people, a government that cares. The problem we have with African leaders is that they see politics as a way of benefiting themselves, not serving the people. They don't serve the people. And they are good at talking every time he's speaking. I'm tired of meetings. How many meetings have we attended? Nothing coming out of it. Getting a lot of allowances just for attending a meeting.
Can you wrap up in the next 30 seconds, please?
Yes. So my thing is, Africans need to learn. We need to now not just talk, but walk the talk. We need more of actions, especially from young people, because when you want to heal the tree, you start from the roots. The roots are the futures of Africa, and the future is now. Let's start acting. As we are here, I would urge everybody on the call that if you have an idea that you have, work on it. Treat Africa as your own property. Do it with love. Don't depend on another person, because if you are depending on another person, more or less you are a leader. I mean, you are just a young person. When you become a
Hello?
leader, you will be the same people to be depending on people outside
Hello,
Africa.
Mr. Brighton.
So in my conclusion, I would say that it starts with you, it starts with me. Let's work on these ideas. Let's work on actually creating solutions for ourselves, so that at least in the years to come, we may be finally free from aid and survive on our own. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for answering the questions. And I really appreciate your contributions. And we have to move on to our next speaker. Patience Namanya. What strategies do you think are key for development professionals to help communities transition towards self-sustaining economic models? How can Uganda and other developing countries promote self-reliance despite the challenges posed by external funding dependencies? How do you incorporate gender inclusivity into your development work? And why is this essential for sustainable self-reliance? You have 5 minutes to respond to the questions. Can you please unmute and be on video? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Can you hear me? Am I audible?
Yes, loud and clear. Go ahead.
Okay, so when we look at strategies that I think development professionals can employ to ensure a transition towards self-sufficiency in our communities, I think we need to look at how do we build the resilience of these communities? How do we ensure our communities can overcome challenges like climate disasters, global economic shocks, and the effect of the effect of global economic shocks on agriculture? So we need to develop community emergency plans, right? Which includes like food storage units that are actually in place, not just built up and abandoned and then remembered when the rainy season or the season of famine comes. We need health resources. And here, when we look at health resources, I want to refer to an example in Rwanda, where they actually have a vaccine factory that has the capacity to produce 500 million doses of vaccines per year. More African countries need to benchmark from Rwanda and get into investing in vaccine production, because now we have Ebola coming up again, and we need to rely on vaccine support from donors when we can actually follow the example from Rwanda. Another important thing is that 60% of Africa's population relies on agriculture for its livelihood. Why aren't we focusing on transforming agricultural practices with technology, okay, to improve resilience? I'll give an example. Uganda has adopted the drought-resistant crops introduced by Oxfam, cassava, sorghum, which have really supported 10,000 farmers in northern Uganda. Another thing we need to do is to develop our communities to be eco-conscious of infrastructure and production systems. So here I'm going to give an example. I had the opportunity to work with 15,000 women entrepreneurs in Uganda, and I represented them on a task force for public and private sector partnerships. And one of the biggest issues we had in ensuring a pollution-free environment was convincing these entrepreneurs to stop importing old, outdated production machines. And this was hard because for them, it translated into lower production costs, but for the environment, it translated into more pollution. So this is something we had to address by educating them about the pollution, environment, and their role as producers. We also need to improve access to quality education. I know this is talked about a lot, but when we look at quality education in Africa, we are looking at quality education, educating Africans to fit the to address the issues of the 21st century, educating Africans to embrace sustainable development, not urban Africans like most of us on this call, but rural Africans. I want to refer to a report by UNICEF that talked about maternal mortality, and how in areas where this research was carried out, majority of the women who were educated decided to go for antenatal care, decided to give birth in healthcare institutions. And this shows you how education transforms the way a community embraces development and embraces opportunities to better their lives. How do we as Uganda, promote self-reliance, or as an African continent? I just want to refer to just 3 basic points. Harnessing our natural resources. This is point number 1. Point number 2, the most important point in how Africa can become self-reliant, because we're home to 60% of the world's solar potential and 30% of global critical mineral reserves. What does that make?
Patience, can you wrap up in the next 30 seconds, please? Thank you.
Yes, please. So what does that make us? A powerhouse for industrial development. We need to move away from just exporting our raw materials. We need to harness the potential of our youth to lead or realign Africa's mineral extraction strategy. And most importantly, follow the example of countries like Botswana, who have reinvested diamond money into young women like their current Minister of Minerals, I believe, who was educated from money got from diamonds, and now is leading the negotiation of the country's critical resources. And that, to me, is very important. African-centered leadership that is centered on using our resources to develop our community and empower young people. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I hope I'm enough. And thank you so much, Miss Patience Namanya, for your comments and contributions. I'll move on to another. From your experience reporting on Nigeria's trade sector caused by global financial instability, you have worked extensively as a trade correspondent. How do you see intra-African trade evolving in light of financial uncertainty and limited funding? As a journalist covering trade, how do you see the media's role in shaping public opinion and the importance of self-reliance in Africa? Can you please unmute and be on video and respond to the questions for the next 5 minutes? Thank you.
You can hear me, right?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, okay, great. So yeah, the first question basically I think it's asking, now that our aid is gone, where do we get money from, right? So I say 2 words, right? Private sector partnership and domestic investment. I would explain. Now, in terms of domestic investments, Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, who is the Director General of the World Trade Organization, at the last AU assembly, she said something. She said that Africa has up to $250 billion in pensions, right? Now, imagine if we channel such money into the critical sectors that need help in Africa, including health, education, infrastructure, technology, all of that. Now, Africa has money. There is money in Africa. So if we can recapitalize our African multilateral banks, to finance key projects, I think we can make progress. Look at the African Finance Corporation, the Afrexim Bank. These are financiers that are important to lend money to where it is most needed, right? So that's in terms of domestic investment. Instead of looking to the IMF and then looking to the World Bank, and these people give us loans and we are in debt all the time. We can capitalize ourselves to fund our own projects. And also in terms of private sector investment, there's so much that we can do as people. We have the talent, we have the resources. We need to prioritize private sector investment. We need to produce locally. We need to involve the private sectors in production, in manufacturing. We need to support them so they don't go outside and supply to somewhere else. We need to improve our own manufacturing so that our imports we have more export than we have import. Dangote refinery do something like that. I was at the refinery on Saturday, and then Dangote is supplying fuel. The Zambian minister came around. He's supplying fuel to Zambia, supplying fuel to Cameroon. This is progress, right? And this is something that's emulatable. I know. I understand that in Ethiopia, there's also they have this initiative that ensures that their food is secured. So they're protecting their own industry. They're protecting their food industry. So these are things that we need to do. We need to prioritize manufacturing, cars, automobiles, Innoson in Nigeria, Nord. This is progress, right? And we need to also make it across board, or should I say across borders, right? And in terms of trade, yes, intra-African trade, definitely. If you think about it, if we need to make trade more attractive. I think we need to make intra-African trade more attractive. People think when they hear African, they think enough efforts are not getting enough quality as you would expect. But instead, it is not the case. If we can make sorry, I don't confirm that you're still with me.
Yes, quiet.
All right, great.
Continue.
So if we can make intra-African trade more attractive, I think that we can improve that self-dependency that we're looking at. Think of industries. In Nigeria, we have oil. Zambia needs oil. Why does Zambia have to go to the United Arab Emirates? Why does Zambia have to go to the US when they can come to buy oil from us? When they can come, now we even have our own refined petroleum products. Let them come to us instead of going to them. In that sense, we are even creating the supply chain, a regional supply chain, which we desperately need. If we can improve on that, we can increase our own authority as a continent, right? So that is part of what I'm hearing about. Now, we think about, I recently heard about the Rwanda has something. Rwanda has something called the Adasiro Development Fund. Now, let me tell you about this fund. This fund means private sector, even Rwandans in diaspora, can bring their money together in a fund that funds national projects. Now, think about it. If a nation can come together and fund their own projects, now they can kick back against foreign aid. We will not have to be begging for money from somebody to fund our own, to educate ourselves, to take care of ourselves, to fund our healthcare research. So this is things that we need to emulate. I understand that M-Pesa, I don't know how many people know about M-Pesa. M-Pesa is like a financial solution for Africa. It was established under the AFC, the African Continental Free Trade Area, right? So these are financial solutions, and I'm glad that we have entrepreneurs on the call as speakers. They are the people we're looking for. And finally,
Hello, Mr. Bethel. Can
Yes.
you please wrap up in the next 30 seconds, please?
Yes,
Thank you.
I'll do that. So yeah, that's in terms of intra-African trade. And I think finally, in terms of the media, yes, I'm a journalist myself. I understand the role I have in shaping media. The media is incredibly important in shaping and narratives around Africa. We need to move away from the dependency narrative to the self-sufficiency narrative. enough of making Africa seem like a child that needs help. Africa is a giant, is a sleeping giant that needs to wake up. That is what we are. So if the media can propel these good stories, these success stories that we have in Africa, we can put forth a brand that shows that indeed we need investment, not aid. Independent countries look for trade. Dependent countries seek aid. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Bethel, for your comments and your responses to the questions. And moving on to our next speaker. That is Taera Eltipo. What strategies do you believe are critical for developing countries to ensure sustainable trade partnerships that promote long-term economic independence? How can island states like Grenada adopt more resilient economic policies to withstand global funding uncertainties? What are the biggest trade barriers you have identified that hinder African and Caribbean nations from achieving self-reliance, and how can they be addressed? Can you please unmute and be on video for the next 5 minutes, please? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So to become more self-reliant, we need trade, right? And needless to say that international trade will play a crucial role in that process. Hence the need for sustainable trading partnerships, which in the long run can transcend to economic independence, right? So to develop such trade partnerships, African countries can look at the following strategies. Firstly, enhancing regional integration. So strengthening regional trade agreements and increasing trade within regional trading blocks like the African Continental Free Trade Area to reduce tariff and non-tariff barriers, facilitating easier trade among African nations. And then we want to also establish and encourage the development of regional supply chains or supply chains within the African trading bloc, and promoting industries that utilize local raw materials and labor, thereby reducing that dependence on external trade, right, or external sources. So we have the multilateral financial institution like Afrexim in this space, in that regional bloc here, and they promote initiatives like the PAPS, which is the Pan-African Payment System, whereby it basically encourages countries to trade using their own local currency, as opposed to having to change their currencies to US to purchase goods and so forth. So we have that PAP system. Apart from regional integration, we can look at diversifying trade partnerships, export markets and products. So I will speak about this strategy in terms of the Caribbean or CARICOM. I don't know how many of you know that the African Union would have adopted the Caribbean, well, CARICOM, and the African diaspora as the sixth region of Africa. And basically what CARICOM is, I don't know how many of you know about CARICOM. CARICOM is like an organization which comprises of 15 Caribbean countries and 5 associate member states. It's an integration movement, right? So in the CARICOM, in terms of trade, we have our primary trading partner is the United States, right? And that's for trading goods. And in terms of services, tourism is the main export from the region, and tourism dependent economies, the most revenue comes from US tourists, so American tourists. Also, okay. The US is also, sorry?
Can you
Oh,
wrap up
okay.
in the next 30 seconds? Thank you.
Okay, well. Okay. Okay, so in terms of the trade barriers, we are looking at things like tariffs and non-tariff trade barriers. Also, we're looking at things like um, transportation and infrastructure, and also limited access to trade financing, right? And solutions which can aid with facilitating these problems. Basically, government should take an integrated approach to lowering tariffs, streamlining custom procedure, and harmonizing standards and regulations. So basically, this would basically provide an avenue for seamless trade within the regional bloc. And if countries take approaches like these, this would tend to streamline trade within the regions, and trade, as I said, is a means to economic resilience. Thank you. Hello? Is it me?
It will be having a microphone issue or internet connection challenge.
Thank you. And now I would like to remember name, country, and question. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
You can unmute and be
No.
on video. Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. All right. It's fine. Thank you. Hello? Can anyone hear me?
Yes, you're audible. I think your internet bandwidth
I
is
can hear you.
flipping, but we can hear you.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you so much. So I was reminding our audience to put in their name, country,
Okay, I'm hearing you
and
too.
questions in the chat box. Because this is time for questions and answers. Valencia, could you help me with the questions, please? I lost the chat due to the connection. Thank you.
Okay, I think we have some questions on the chat box. I'm not sure if Betty was keen on that, but I think we can proceed on having the questions. We had Abdul Mohammed. You're raising your hand. You can proceed and ask your question live. Abdul Mohammed Karim, please unmute and ask your question live. Okay, Abdul is not with us. She might be on mute and silent. So let's find anybody. If you have a question, you can just raise your hand and we'll choose you to ask your question live. Anyone, if you have typed a question on the chat box, I think we have James Ngafwa. Please proceed and ask your question. Just unmute and ask your question. If you are on, you can turn your video on. Please proceed, James. Okay, ask your question. We can't hear you. You're on mute. We can't hear you.
Am I clear?
Yeah, you're clear. You're clear. You can ask a question.
All right, so I was asking, how can we establish a trust that we enable the government to trust us with support system?
Please come back again. For the speakers who are present, you can please pay attention to the question because one of you might come to the question.
All right, I said, how can we build trust to encourage the government to invest in us that are in the private sector?
Okay, James, can you start by telling us your name and country?
All right, I'm sorry, I'm James Espousing from Liberia.
Okay, thank you for asking a question. I think one of our speakers taken note, and in case it's not clear, we will come back to you. Another question will be picking from Feston. You can unmute and put your video on, Feston, if you can hear us.
All right.
Feston?
Yes, sir.
Yes, you can ask him. You can ask a question.
Okay. My question is even in the comment section. My question is, after understanding what my presenters have talked about, is my concern is that as the AU or African Union, or as the people in this group, or the representative and other bodies of the African, how can we address the weak currency issue? Because I believe the reason why the US and the UK have developed to that level, or are able to develop, it's because of the one power currency, or the currency that is so powerful that it can be able to support the industries emerging in the country. Look at China. China's currency in its own country, it's very powerful that it's able to debate with other currencies. And that is why the industries are able to thrive. I believe industries with weak currencies, then it will take years and years for us to develop. But what is African AU doing about it? Then the next question is, what is it that, looking at...
You can ask your question and we'll pick your next question on the second round. I think
on the second. Okay.
African
just this one?
Yeah, and what they is doing with that. I think but just to comment on that, we already have the PAP system that is trying to conglomerate all these currencies by the African. One speaker should handle that question. Thank you, Feston. Any other person with a question?
I continue with the next one.
No, you can hold the next question for the second round.
Okay, the next question goes to the education system that is looking at in the African sector. When it comes to the universities, and a lot of about 90% of the African universities that I've come across to understand and read about them is that they are universities that are just educating but not helping in the production. They can educate production managers, but they cannot even produce anything as the university. Like in our country, Zambia, right now, as we are talking, one of the biggest universities has been closed because of the water challenge in the city. And yet it is a university that is teaching or educating people on how to become industrious or how to become engineers. It's one of the biggest, actually it's the biggest engineering school in Zambia, but it has been closed due to shortage of water or water crisis in the town where it is. So what is the African Union, or what is Africa doing about this, that these universities, especially national universities, they start producing something to the nation of its own and also Africa at large, so that it produces active and well versatile students or graduates that are going to be useful to even start their own companies, because even at school they are producing tangible things. I rest my question.
Okay, thank you, Feston. I think your first question was about the currency, African Union currency, maybe how we're going to, yeah. Then the second question is about an upgrade on university education to help us be self-resilient in everything
exactly.
we do. I think we can have any speaker to come in and respond. Let me see with him.
I have a question, please. Can I go on?
Who's that? Okay. While you can go on, I think we'll pick those 4 questions. Then the next speaker.
Okay, I can go on.
Yeah.
Okay. My question is this. Is there any difference between African leaders and the African citizen? If answer is no, it is mean that all of us, being an Africa, we have a lot to do in the promotion of African. But if answer is yes, then our leader, are they not part and parcel of us? So it is mean that it is when they are able to be a leader, then we can be able to draw some curtain. So, however, my advice on this point is charity begins at home. It is a duty bound on every one of Africa, or however, it is a duty bound on all of us to start mobilizing, as well as to encourage our youth to have love for other as well as our continent. So I submit.
Thank you, Ole, for that. I think most of what you have submitted was mainly most of the comments and encouragements for Africans to pay attention to their continent and having our leaders also taking charge of whatever we have in this continent to make us self-resilient. So I believe both speakers, I've seen Lisa and Andrew. I'll be picking your questions in the next round. Now we have our speakers. We have Patience. We have Dr. Josefi. And we have I think Nlagadi is also here. One of you can pick the question. I think Tulani, you can come in if your internet is okay.
Okay, thank you so much for your question. I would want to address, I would want to address the question that was asked about why universities produce nothing, and the example that one of the speakers said. So, in respect as to what we must first to understand why the universities actually. Hello.
Yes, we can hear you. We can hear you.
So I would want to address the question that was asked about why universities produce nothing, and yet in certain even instances they are being closed for the same reasons, for the same courses they are teaching. One of the problems that I think is about the curriculums. Most of the curriculums in Africa are non-competence based. That means that most of the things are theoretical, not practical. So that is one of the problems. That is why most of the universities are producing graduates that cannot be able to perform, because of the curriculums that we have, that different countries have, that are non-competence based. The other aspect is about the resources. Most universities do not have enough resources in terms of finances. That is why you find in some universities, even people still do not have facilities like chairs to sit on. Although adequately that has been somehow addressed, but still there is a problem in regards to that. And then the other aspect is about the pedagogy. The pedagogy that is being used in while teaching while teaching students. If the pedagogy is non-competence based, definitely you cannot produce a competence based person who can be able to perform based on or who can be able to perform the job that he or she is being actually graduating to do. So the other aspect is about, of course, the other aspect that I would want to emphasize more is more of also the legislations or the regulatory frameworks that are regulating education in various countries. Of course, there are some lapses that, of course, bring about the challenges that we have. So one of the solutions to that is that we need to have competence-based curriculum. Uganda has started on that so far. In our O levels, students are doing now competence-based curriculum, and definitely also now universities used to upgrade in respect to that. So one of the various solutions to the problems that we have is having competence-based curriculums. Another solution is also to change the pedagogy that we use while teaching in universities. And then there are, of course, pedagogies. That means that we are going to be more in field, more of doing practicals in respect. And that means that we are going to also change. We are not only going to change the way we teach students, but we are even going to change the way we assess, evaluate, and also give assignments. That includes that. Then, of course, that one also includes, because, of course, some of the aspects entail
Nagari, you
having
can wrap up in the next
money. That means that we are going to raise funds. Therefore, we are going to do inward or internal raising of funds, not basically depending on the external aid. I submit. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nagari, for your submission. I believe we still have another question that was about currency from Feston, and I think James from Liberia. And I believe Wale was just making some comments there, encouragement for what we should need to pay attention to, based on the theme. So if Bethel, Patience, you are ready to pick up, and Dr. Uzoefi, feel free to unmute and go ahead and respond to the question.
Yeah, so I don't mind responding to that.
Yeah, moderator, can you please just remind me the questions, because I didn't get it well. Or someone is already okay on the mic. Okay, better go ahead. I'll tell you back.
Okay, yeah. So I don't know. Okay, let me start with the question about someone asked about how to present or how to get funds or something like that, something regarding seeking funding for businesses, for private businesses, right? So in Nigeria, for example, we have a lot of regulatory organizations. These organizations test for standard, like the Standard Organization of Nigeria. And, these are organizations that regulate the quality of what we produce locally. So if what we produce locally is not attractive for international export, then it will be sent back, it will be rejected. And that's a waste of resources, because it will only be used for internal consumption, which is not the goal. So if you are a private player and you are producing something, right? I don't know, the person asked the question, I don't know if this is an entrepreneur or I can't say. But one thing I have come to realize is that in Africa, I've read several reports where they say in Africa we have too many businesses, but too little potential to scale. So we have so many businesses, almost 71% of Africans want to start a business today. But how many of them are ready to scale? How many of them can scale? So I think it's important to be forward thinking. And as much as you want to get, okay, yes, you can get money, right? You can say you're a producer, but, or you're a producer, you're a manufacturer, but what are you manufacturing? Is it meeting international standards? Because we don't want to, we're not manufacturing for local consumption. That is good. But what we need is the effects, and the effects we can get from exporting. So these are questions to consider. And in terms of currency, yes, the idea of a single currency for the continent is a good one. It's something that's come up many times. I mean, some local, some regional blocks already operate on. I know that some francophone speaking countries use the franc, and even West Africa wanted to use the echo at some point. But even that was suspended. The region suspended it because plans to go forward with it had been slow, because there are so many things that go into that. Aligning several parameters, some economic parameters and indicators to that. We're talking of inflation. We're talking of GDP, debt to GDP ratio. These are things that have to be aligned, right? And again, we have if we have a international, maybe we have an African bank, and then we have a single currency. Who is going to regulate it? What country will take charge of it? So these are things that have slowed down the process. Yes, the idea is good, it's great, in the sense that it can help us, it can help our independence, right? Especially considering the fact that we have several local currencies that are doing terribly against the dollar, which it is pegged against, right? So, but the feasibility of it is what is in question. Are African countries willing to embrace this new development, this new currency? Are they willing to ensure that it is implemented across board? Are they willing to make the financial decisions that are needed to ensure that we can all integrate this into one currency? So these are the questions, and this is the reason why this has been slowed, has been delayed. In terms of possibility, 50%, it's not impossible, but at the same time, it is currently a little so difficult to do.
Okay, thank you, Bethel, for your submission. I think you have cleared out, you put it clearly that Africans, for self-resilience, will need to have these countries coming up together, the partnership that we're seeing through the FCFTA. Countries should be able to integrate and be able to allow that people can have a single currency. But despite not having a single currency, I'll just add on that we currently have the Pan-African payment and settlement system that is being run.
PAPS is there, so we can still make cross-border transactions locally with our local currencies. That is also there as well. So that's also a good step. If we can implement that across border, I think, and we can integrate more countries into that, I think we can also have in a few years, we can start talking about how to ensure that we operate.
Okay, sure. Thank you, Betwin. And I think we have 2 questions. That should be Andrew, James, and Lisa. I think for those questions, we'll have who's the Patience and Dr. Hugwefi to respond to the question, as most of the speakers are not based in Africa at the moment, and they dropped off because it's late and they had to step up in some other duties. So I'll request Andrew, if you can unmute and ask your question live. Then we are followed by Lisa and James. Please, James, this time round, come clearly with your question, straight to the point. Andrew, followed by Lisa, then James.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Thank you once again for the knowledge and everything. I don't know if you can all hear me. Hello?
Audible and clear.
All right. So my question, I don't know if the speaker is still on. It goes directly to a speaker. I don't know his name now. Sorry for that. But he spoke on something about students in the university who started businesses, and in the end, after the university, they just left the businesses because they have this kind of mentality of like in Africa, that one has to have a white collar job to be successful. So my question is, what if the reason why one actually drops out or stops engaging that business, it's because of finances and maybe access to support from or access to grants from the government and all other financial institutions. What if that's the reason? How do one still go about it? Like I can use myself as a case study. I'm a medical lab scientist in training in school, but I have passion for the tech and the media industry. How do I see myself? How do I fund or how do I push my vision to the next level after the university when people or institutions are not ready to, support? How do I do that? I don't know. I'm directing the question particularly to a speaker in person. I don't know if he's still on. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew, for your submission. I think that question should be directed to Brighton Kanda. Unfortunately, Brighton Kanda left the call. He's currently in the US and it should be daytime there. So he had some other duties to engage in. But I believe some speakers who are here, they can still respond to that. I think Dr. Jose, you can handle that question on patients. Then we come to Miss Alice. Please unmute and ask your question.
Okay, thank you, moderator. Let me try to answer these questions. I think according to my understanding, there is issue with our academic structure. We need some reforms. Reform in terms of infrastructures and reform in terms of how do you call content. I wish that our academic programs could answer the need of the market. We need to have students with, or let's say Africans with their degrees and able to work everywhere in Africa in all sectors, active sectors that directly contribute to the economic and development.
You have your camera cover on. We can't see you.
Yeah, I just turn it on, but I perhaps have issue with network, so probably that's the reason. So I just click on the camera. You see me now? Yeah, but the issue is very dark. So,
okay. You can proceed.
So yes, I was saying that we need to invest in infrastructure to have the current, let's say, useful infrastructure we need to have in our universities, and promote this education accessible into let's say online platforms. We need also to make very open our programs into international universities where our African students can also join other programs internationally to be able to educate themselves very well and challenge the let's say the market very internationally. So for that, we need also to update, have some reform in terms of content.
Dr. Kauze?
Yes.
Can you wrap up in the next 30 seconds, please? Thank you.
So what is the question actually you want me to answer?
I said, can you wrap up in the next 30 seconds, please?
Oh, okay, no problem. Thank you. So for that, we need to update the university. The academic programs in our universities to be able to allow us to answer the needs in the market to challenge. The how do you call it, the companies that recruit in terms of technology, in terms of industries, and other sector related to development. And to finish, I think we also have to work in a very common current African program, because currency is essential to be updated. But African, we need to have unique currency, because in terms of GDP, all the countries have not the same level. So presidents are not actually in the same visions, but we need to convince each of them that even if we have different GDP, we can also still working on let's say unique currency, because this is the only chance for Africa to have a strong economy and to be able to export our final product into the international market. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Jose, for your submission. I think you're responding to the question that was asked by the guy from Zambia. I can't recall his name clearly, but it should be he's somebody. I don't want to butcher your name, but you can proceed. Lisa, please ask your question, and this will be the final question as time is winding up.
Oh wait,
So,
before the final question, someone asked a question about funding. Right?
Okay.
Yes. Someone asked a question about funding. Out of school, starting a business. Where do I get money? I think something related to that. Or okay, I think the issue was closing down because due to a little or no funding. Right. Now, I'm no expert in that. I believe that those who have started businesses, the entrepreneurs on this call, who would have been in a better position to answer that. But from what I know, I'll tell you this: it's not it won't be the first instance or situation that I've heard of. There are many people who, as I mentioned something that not just now, that 71% of Africans want to start a business, but many cannot scale. Many close down after the first few years, even before a year. Now the problem is there is no uniqueness to what they have to offer. If you look at the businesses that are doing well now, right? I'm talking of personal problem. I'm talking about the climate. Yes, there's a what I call a restrictive climate in terms of funding, technology, in terms of power, all that. Yes, true. But if you want to succeed, I believe people have to first of all look within what I'm offering. How good is what I'm offering? Right, the quality of it. What problem am I solving? Because in Africa, we don't need 50 businesses. If we have 5 businesses that solve 5 different problems, I think we'll be fine. Instead of 50 that solve the same problem. So we don't need saturation of all that. We need to actually find a way to solve a unique problem. And then when we do that, then we have people who are willing to fund those things. I know of the Tony Elumelu Foundation. I know that they have some entrepreneurial sponsorship funds, right? We have people who offer grants and all that, right, to small businesses. And I know that even some banks have certain schemes that offer loans to certain people at low interest rates, even at the current MPC meeting in Nigeria. If you're in Nigeria, MPC meeting, there was no increase or decrease in interest rates. Interest rates were held up. It means that banks can still offer loans at the same interest rate as they did. And there are special programs for that. So that's what I would say in terms of funding. Yes, if you have something good, run with it. But before you do that, before you go to look for money, first of all, reevaluate your stance, your business, your USP. Do you have something unique? Do you have something? Are you solving a problem, or are you just there for the money? If you're there just for the money, you might not go far. But if you're solving an issue, you would stand out. That's what I'll say.
Thank you, Bethel, for those submissions. I believe you have placed out clearly that we have a lot of businesses in Africa, so we need to diversify, not maybe having similar businesses or replicates of the business that we have in Africa. So in every African country, you also want to entrepreneurs can take that note. Like if you are doing a business, it should not be another version of another business. You should not compete on the same market share. So take note of that while you're creating your business and also finding opportunities. They're always available there, including the one at TF, Tony Elumelu, and there'll be more. You can always have them or research on them online. So I think, Lisa, I'll just put your notice to ask a final question, maybe in 30 seconds. Then from there, we can wrap up. Lisa, if you're still there.
Oh my God. Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Hello.
Hello, we can hear you.
Okay, my name is Lisa. Okay, my name is Lisa Wanyande. I'm from Kenya, Nairobi, Kenya. And I was sharing a suggestion, and also I think my suggestion is going to answer the question of universities, employment and creation of opportunities. So I'll be fast. I want to say, when you look at Africa, we are rich in diversity and we have more potential in through education systems and also leadership. Mostly these are we have bad governance or bad leaders that hinder our progresses as young people and also as potential citizens of Africa. Most of our education system must be evolved from root learning or to fostering critical thinking and innovation, mostly to ensure inclusivity and digital access for all. Like right now, we have the Gen Z, which we are the next generation. We're more involved in financial market that is under digital or technology AI. So government could foster and create hubs for African youth on that, because most young people are doing forex and doing trading, all that stuff. Also, I was saying that we need visionary leaders to rooted integrity, leaders who empower communities and also to create opportunities for us. But the leadership isn't just for those who empower. My dad usually tells me, it said it's a call to us, like it's a call to me, the youth, so that we lead with purpose and courage. So that's the empowerment we need from our leaders that are in governance. I would say again, in Africa we have over 60% population which is run by young people, and this continent is the greatest asset. We have more resource which can create employment and create opportunities for African youth. So what we'll do, because I know youths in every country of Africa have raised their voices, have fought enough to seek opportunity from the government, from their leaders, but there is no change at all. Their voices are just numbs to the government. So I will request the youths that are here. I think what we do, my dad usually say, if there's no change, equip yourself. We have to keep ourselves with relevant skills, with our skills, and also we have to embrace entrepreneurship, and also we can engage in socio-political dialogues by maybe connecting across borders, like the one Yalda has created for us now. And also we can reshape Africa's narrative and we should drive a sustainable development as young people. And my last thing is to say that the future of Africa lies in education, transformative leadership, and the resilience of us youth. I'll say together we can build a self-reliant and prosperous continent. And another thing is success isn't about being perfect. If you want to do business, it's just about being persistent. Keep on trying and try again. Thank you so much, the speakers, the host, actually. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa, for those comments. I think your submission has been your submit. It was broad, but I think people have been able to pick what you're talking about, and saying that success, actually you learn nothing from success. You only learn from failure, because once you succeed, then you have to get to another level. So you probably learn a lot from failure than from success. So to wrap up, I'll ask you to if you have your camera and you can scan this code, to follow our YouTube channel. That should be on YouTube. Of course, this recording will also be there. Then you can also scan this to follow us on social media. I've just shared the link on the chat book. That should wrap us for this session. So I believe you've had some interesting speakers here. Most of them have deliberated on different issues tied on this theme from different countries, given their own perspectives, and also I believe those of us, their questions have also come from different angles based on education, funding, Africa, currency, resilience, all these items. So it's up to us to learn more on the topic and engage with any other material that you find about how we can maybe it's a shift from aid from the other countries that become more self-reliant and resilient. I want to take this time to thank our speakers. For those who joined and those who have had some other engagement, it was a pleasure being here and sharing your deliberations and engaging on this team. For audience who also have stayed up to this point of the night, depending on the region you are, maybe it could be afternoon, morning, or evening. It was a pleasure engaging in this session, and you can always engage later. Keep scanning the link and following the social media links I've also posted in the chat. To close up the session, I don't think we'll have the time for 1 minute closing by the speakers. I think most of the speakers left. So I'll read this out. It is time to stop talking and for Africa to rise up. Espousing self-resilience in time of uncertainties is crucial for every African. No one is coming to help us, and we must help ourselves. Let us keep broadening our commitments towards the economic growth and integration of the continent. Thank you all for joining the webinar session. This was insightful, inspiring, and educative. And I believe we have a better future for Africa with the youths involved. Thank you.